Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Devrel show. It is episode number 18. Always excited to do that show. Always a pleasure to, talk about developer relation, learn new things with the demo, and meet just awesome people. I don't know if I said it before, but like I have a fine mix between people that I already met in person at different events, people that I never met in person, but like we followed each other on social media for a while, or people that I've never met in person and were just a new acquaintances on social media because of the show. So hopefully it is has amazing for you people who are listening to the show live or watching the recording that it is for me to do it. But again, it's a privilege to be able to do that show. And today, I'm quite happy I have Ram as my guest today. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Thanks for having me, Fred.
Thanks for being on the show. Again, it's I said it before, I will say it again. That show would be boring as fuck if it was just me. It's all about the guests. You are the people doing the show. So thanks to you for joining the show and being one of my guests on the Devrel show. So about that, can you tell us who you are?
Sure, Fred. My name is Ram. I currently focus on open source full time. I work with the Linux Foundation on a couple of different projects, um, and yeah, my path to Devrel was through many different hoops. Like a lot of people, it started with being an engineer, um, and then 10, 12 years later, here I am.
That's awesome. That's so. You say you're working with the Linux Foundation and focusing on open source projects. So, if I base my knowledge about yourself on your LinkedIn profile, it says that you work at the Cloud Foundry Foundation. So, is it like a subsidiary of Linux Foundation?
Yeah, so the technical term is a directed fund.
Okay.
So Cloud Foundry is an open source project, and it has been since 2015. Cloud Foundry had its own foundation, and it has a large number of related projects that are owned by the foundation. In 2020, few months after I had joined the foundation, they moved from being an independent nonprofit to becoming a part of the Linux Foundation. So technically, I am a part of the Linux Foundation, but also a big chunk of my work involves the Cloud Foundry Foundation and projects within the Cloud Foundry Foundation, such as Cloud Foundry itself. And there's also like a Paketo Buildpacks project that I'm closely involved with, and a bunch of different other you know projects within the Cloud Foundry community, but also in the larger LF ecosystem.
Okay, that sounds good. So, one of the things that I like, or actually that I don't do, when I have a guest, is like I try to read as little as possible about their company, about their journey, about their projects, because I want to, like, have like natural questions coming up. So it's why I was like, I know Cloud Foundry, but I didn't know they were like part of the Linux Foundation. So thanks for the information. Speaking about that, your official title is Chief Evangelist. So I
Mm-hmm.
have two questions about that. The first one is, what are you doing basically day to day? What is a Chief Evangelist doing at Cloud Foundry? And the second, if I can follow up right away with that, actually, you know what? I'm going to come back to it after the second one. Let's start with the first one. So, what is your job as a Chief Evangelist?
So it's a fancy way of saying developer advocate. I'll admit that. But one of the important things that I like to keep in mind is the Cloud Foundry community has very few people who are focused full time on the open source project itself. So there's two people. There's me, and I have a colleague who's a program manager, and he leads a lot of the inward functions. And I like to think that I lead a lot of the outward functions. So it involves everything from Devrel to marketing to analyst relations and writing press releases and making sure that the word about the project gets about. And somebody pointed out that evangelist has a Greek root that means to bring in good news. And I kind of like the ring of that. So I'm the one that's responsible for bringing in a lot of the good news about the project itself. And so the name kind of comes from there. But yeah, I a lot of work involves advocacy, and I just decided to expand my title a little bit. And um, being in a small team, gives you that that leeway.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of the outward facing responsibility for the project is mine. And that's really what a chief evangelist does, I guess.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. And you kind of like answer a little bit my question, my second question and the first question. It was really about the word evangelist, a little bit of like a backstory around that. Like when I started doing developer relation, it was, I don't know, maybe 13 years ago now, and it was
Hmm.
at Microsoft, and my first title was technical evangelist or developer evangelist.
Okay.
Actually, I can't remember, but like I had the word evangelist, and that was like how developer advocates were called in the days. Like I don't think developer advocate existed. Like the title evangelist was what we were using at the time.
Yep.
And at
Yep.
some point I moved to another company, and they were like, hey, you know what, we're not going to use evangelist. Like people were slowly moving to developer advocate or technical
Sure.
advocate, like using the word advocate, because and bear with me, I'm not saying that in a negative way, but like people were like, hey, there is like that religious connotation to
Sure.
evangelist.
Sure.
And
Sure.
there's also the part that like people, I think it's being a little bit meta, but like people were like, hey, evangelist, it seems like we're like just it's just in one direction. We're like evangelizing people, where advocates, it's like it's kind of like a two-way discussion where like, yes, I evangelize for stuff, but I'm also like a developer advocate. I bring
Okay.
feedback to the product team, and I evangelize for developer internally. With
Sure.
that said, I always loved the word evangelist. I was really sad when my title moved from like developer evangelist or technical evangelist for developer advocate, because I
Right.
thought it was like as you said, it was a fantastic word. It was like bringing the good news to people. It was
Hmm.
also a great icebreaker, because people was like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like you're an evangelist. Like are
Right.
you going
Right.
to church every Sunday or something?" So I really loved
Yeah.
it. From what I heard, like recently in the company, there's a lot of companies that use both. Like they say, like developer advocate
Yep.
is really like what
Yep.
we do, and evangelist is more like the person's gonna do a lot more outreach. So super
Sure.
long story to ask you a question about like how do you see the term evangelist itself, and like was it a conscious choice to use the word evangelist versus advocate, because advocate is more popular now. So I'm not saying it's a bad
Sure.
choice. I'm just like just curious about like the word itself and the choice that you've made.
No. So I'm going to give you two stories, one professional and one personal. Um, the personal one is, somebody in my family got hold of my LinkedIn profile. And you can see where this is going, right? So we're they when I was speaking to them, they were like, Ram, you got an engineering degree, but why are you working for a church? And it took me a while to realize why they were asking that. And then I spent like a lot of time convincing my family that I work for a technical organization that does computer stuff. And it's not like I go to work at a church every day. And no, you cannot see me on TV in any of those different channels. So yeah, I totally get the connotations that are associated with the word. I would say that it's a conscious choice that I made, largely because I like where the word evangelist comes from. And um, I was developer relations manager, developer evangelist, product evangelist, and developer advocate before. Um, and so, I just felt chief evangelist described my work much better. Um, I did not think about it being a one way versus a two-way thing. Although now I'm going to, think about it. And
Sorry
yeah,
about that.
yeah, depending on how I feel 6 weeks from now, maybe I'll switch for a title. I don't know, King of the Castle, Lord of the Manor, whatever.
No, that's amazing. And sorry, my question was really not to like put on the spot like your
Oh
title or
no,
your choice
absolutely not. Oh
or
no, no, no.
like have you changed your decision. It's just
Mhm.
like from what I heard, and as I said, there's probably like I think there is an article on my blog that I wrote like many years ago was like I prefer the word evangelist because, like, people, when I still had the title evangelist, some people were challenging me because that was like at the beginning of the era of like people moving from evangelist to advocate. And people
Sure.
were like, why your title is still evangelist? And I wrote a blog post about like the reasons and why I preferred it. And at some point, I just went with the flow and I adopted what I
Sure.
had to do because as you said also like you're in a place where you have the possibility to basically choose your title, but at some point depending on the company sometimes you just like you have to take what they give you in terms of like title. You
Sure.
don't really have the choice, so I kind of like
Yep.
adopted the advocate title of it, but I still have like a place in my heart for the evangelist word because like I feel like in the end it's a little bit what we do, and as you said, like it's people putting meanings to a title. It's the other
Oh
people, it's
yeah.
not you. Like it's like the fact that some companies see evangelist has like just a one way to reach out people, which was never
Hmm.
my job. Like even when my title was an evangelist, my job was still to like give love to developers, educate them, bring the feedback to the product team. It was like a two-way street. It was not
Sure.
never
Sure.
like just me preaching like stuff to people and like, hey, you have to drink the Kool-Aid and you have to believe everything I say. So yeah, sometimes I feel like as much as I do not personally care about titles, they're still important because the business and people care about them. So
Hmm.
that was kind of my question. And based on that, we have Nimit that say, "Hey folks, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being with us today. Should I remember people? There's some banners that I show some text once in a while, and one is if you have any question for a guest or for myself, please leave them on the chat. And if you don't, do like Nimit and just say hi. It's always a pleasure to see people saying hi for me, for the guest. I hope so. Also, just to know that you're here. Actually, I know you're here. I know the stats, but like when you say I, it's just a little bit nicer. Uh, Ram, you are doing that developer relation job for a long time. Like I was just looking at your LinkedIn, and like you had like a
Hmm.
previous job. Like as you said, like as a developer relations manager, partnership, strategic alliances, product evangelist, security evangelist, developer advocate, chief evangelist. So you've been doing this for a while. Um, like I think you touched base a little bit in your intro about like how you moved to like a developer relation role, but like would you like to share a little more like
Sure.
what was the transition for you in that role?
Sure. It's been a little over 12 years since I started working full time out of college and things like that. Um, my first job out of college was being a developer on a team that built some content management systems for a really large scale company. So this was one of the big education companies, and we were doing some media server related stuff, and it was all massive amounts of data, large files, large number of transactions, lot of fun stuff. And one day I got to work on Java. The other day I got to work on some gateways written in C. There's a lot of Perl and PHP that was stitched together and just handed down generation to generation. And it was a very interesting job for me as a first one, and being a generalist and not a specialist kind of track. And along the way, I had this yearning for being a teacher. So I took up another role um, as a lecturer of computer science, where I went to school, college. Um, but over time, what I realized was I love the I love the people facing aspects and the interactive
Mhm.
nature of being a lecturer, but I love the pay in the software engineering industry. And so Devrel was like the perfect fit for me, which I found after stumbling onto different roles as product manager, things like that. Um, what I realized was a lot of products and projects don't suffer from less number of features as much as they suffer from lack of education about the features that exist. So that was my
Yep.
big aha moment. And um, 8 years ago, I decided that the path to growth for a product is through education as much as it is through feature development and things like that. And so um, that's that was the moment that I really started to take this role seriously. And fortunately, my managers and skip levels were all very accommodating in that respect. And that was my first devrel gig, transitioning from a product based role about 8 years ago. And since then, it's been great. I like to think of myself as having been fortunate enough to cross off all of the devrel edge cases, um, which are I work for like very early stage startups, which is a challenge by itself. None of the devrel rule books work there. I've done devrel for like open source for 4 years now, which again is very different because there's no sales cycle, there's no marketing funnel to feed into. You're working with a
Yeah.
project that people can adopt, and you never hear about who's adopting it or what they're trying to do with it and things like that. um, and then my first devrel gig was for like a low code no code company, where the big mantra was don't write code, but then you have to say it to programmers and developers who love writing code. So it's the trifecta of what can complicate devrel, which is already very complicated by and of itself. So yeah, it's been a very interesting 8 years, 9 years now, having gone through all of these different experiences. And just working with companies in helping discover the story and tell it to the world.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. And actually, Nimit also that was on point. Product education is so much more important than feature development. I mean, I give a talk on like developer documentations once in a while. You know how to like why it's important, why it's really important, and like how to create great developer documentation. And this is what I usually say is that you may have like the best product out there. If people don't know how to use it, not going to work. Like you're not going to be successful. So you need to have like great documentation or video tutorials or people like sharing, like educate like your potential users, your actual users, how to use the feature, how to use them correctly, what are the limits, what are the things they can do, and what issues, what solutions, actually what issues you're solving and what solution you bring to the table. So I feel like it is critical, like you said. And also depending on the audience, like the developer audience is a, how can I say that in a friendly way, it's a special one. It's a special audience.
Oh yeah.
You need to approach that audience in a specific way. I assume it's the same case for different type of audiences, but
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like, there's an approach to that, and as much as I feel like the traditional marketings have a good opportunity to do specific things that they do very well, developer relation also has an approach that resonates a lot more with developers and or DevOps or GitOps people that like really resonate more with technical people. So it's why I've always felt, as I said, I'm always preaching for my own stuff because I'm doing Devrel, but it's why I feel like it's really important. And
Mm-hmm.
speaking about your experience about Devrel, Nimit was saying like, "Hey, I'm here to learn today from the expert developer evangelism. I just started and feel in that field and seem that field seems exciting." So
Mm-hmm.
based on that, gave me an idea of a question. So you've been doing that for a long time now. Do you have any advices for someone who would like to go from, let's say, developer role to becoming like an evangelist or developer advocate, someone who's going to be new to the field?
Sure. I think the best kind of DevRel folks come with some developer experience, or you know time in the trenches, as I like to call it. I see a lot of people who start off as a fresher being a developer advocate. um, my take might be a little controversial. I'm not a big fan of that path. Being in the trenches definitely gives you perspective, it gives you some experience, and it helps you empathize with developers as they're trying to build things that you're going to talk to them about. And so, I think it's very critical to have that experience under your belt, as someone who's tested things, tried things, failed a few times, and then when you come out and talk to people about, hey, here's how you go about doing things, here's how the product can solve x and y problems. I think it makes a lot of difference at that point if you have a little, product usage experience in some form.
Right.
You could come from, I don't know, any different fields. You could be an app developer, you could be some SRE, you could be some DevOps person somewhere, you could just have moonlighted at least for some time on some, using some tools and things like that. But I think it's extremely important to have that experience before you jump into advocating for those things. And when you start pursuing a path of advocacy, I think after having empathy for the developer, I think the second most important thing is about being honest about whether or not a tool is
Thank
good
you.
to solve a problem. Your tool does not have to be a silver bullet. You don't have to promise the heaven and earth. If it solves a problem, good. If it solves it well, great. But if it doesn't solve it, that's okay too. And you can just let people know that, hey, this problem does not have a good fit with the solution that I'm trying to advocate or I'm an expert of. So I've seen a lot of people trying to shoehorn their project or product onto things that don't quite fit. And you know that's where you need to be true to yourself and true to the profession. And um, I have personally made that mistake a few times. And it's one of those things that I think about in hindsight, and feel that I probably shouldn't have done that. But yeah, I think those are the two big things for me. If you're listening to this, and if you're you know early to the field and starting off and things like that.
I totally agree with you. Actually, with everything you said. I mean, I don't know if it's controversial, but like I'm part of the people like you need to have like technical experience or at least a little bit of technical experience so you know what you're talking about, so you have credibility when you talk to developers too. So I think it's important. And also, what you said, being having empathy for developers is one thing too. I've seen developer advocates who were, I don't know to say that, like maybe too pretentious, having like too big ego and we're like, hey, but like it's easy. Why are you not able to do that? Like, I mean, like we
Yeah.
all start to one place. And even if you have like a lot of experience, like there are like new programming language, new libraries, new principle, new things that new technologies that you may not know. So like we're always trying to learn. So just like be like have empathy for developers. If developers also like sometimes struggle with product teams that's like, hey, but like that's not a problem, that like they just don't know how to use the software. I mean, no, it's your problem or it's my problem if they don't know how to use the software. It's maybe they didn't read the docs, or like I'm missing something and it was not clear, or maybe your product is not as easy to use as you think, because
Yeah.
in the end of
Yeah.
the day, like when you build it, you know how to use it, and you will always use like the preferred path to do something. But the user is that, so they will like use it not how it is intended. So like having that empathy is really important. But when I said like thank you, that was when you said like, hey, we need to be honest with people. I think that is the I'm gonna make enemies by doing by saying that, but I think that is the difference between uh, what developer relation is and what usually in general, not everybody, but like sales or marketing quite
Hmm.
often do, meaning that like they try to sell you at, and then not every salespeople.
Yeah.
I know salespeople that are amazing, but been doing that for a long time. I don't have a lot of people on my list too, because I understand too. At some point, like your job and the money you're gonna make depends on like the sales you're gonna make. So you try to sell to people. I have the benefits of like my salary is not based on the number of users, number of people that gonna buy the license. So I'm basically like being honest with people, and I think because developer relation, I always say developer relation is a medium to long term impact type of job, because it's about the
Hmm.
youth, it's about creating connection. And if I'm start to bullshitting you about stuff, that's not going to be a good start of a relationship. That's not going to work. So if you're honest with people, if you're really true to people, like maybe right now your software, your product is not the right fit for them, but what about in 6 months when you have the feature that they're missing? Or what about when that
Hmm.
person changed to a new job? Or like it's not good for them, but like on another team in the company, like that may solve their issues. If you just like lie to them and you're not like telling the truth and try to like force them to use your product, it's just not gonna work. um it's not. So I'm so happy that like someone else on that show, actually nobody said something that goes against what you said on the show. I'm really
Sure.
happy on
Sure.
that, but like that you were really bold about like, yeah, we need to be honest with people. I think that's the way to go. Nimit was saying like I approach them by making community. So we approach people like developer first, and then about the product we're talking about. So I think it's a good approach too. I mean, like I don't know for you, Ram, but I know where I am right now at Cube First. I always say like every time I talk to people, I mean, like we have that fantastic Slack community that is all about cloud native, and please join the community even if you don't use our product. Like we have channels, we're gonna try to help you with the cloud native technologies that we know, that we have the expertise, even if you don't use our product, because we're just a bunch of like friendly people with an expertise and we want to help you. And this is basically what I do. Like what we do, we try to help people being successful, and obviously we hope they're going to be successful with our product, but at the end of the day, we're building relationship with people. So yeah.
Yeah, I can vouch for that firsthand. I've interacted with a bunch of people from Cube First. I think John Dates and Jared and
Yeah.
Jared Edwards. They've all been like fantastic human beings, helping me out with like very left field open source business type of questions and things like that. And also they're deep in the woods about platforms and all of that fun stuff as well. And yeah, I highly recommend hanging out with the Cube First folks, and just making friends, both learning and helping them learn some stuff from time to time. They're very down to earth despite being like amazing technologists and company founders and what have you. So yeah, i I totally I would totally plus one on all of the stuff that you said.
That's amazing. I was not saying that for you to like tap your shoulders and like good job, but I really appreciate the feedback. I don't know if they're watching right now, but I'm gonna transfer the feedback and let them know how the nice things you said about them.
Sure.
We don't do that to have people thanking us, but it's always nice when people come forward and say like, "Hey, you're a nice human," or "You helped me to solve that issue." It's always a nice thing. So, suggestion for people out there, when
Mhm.
someone helps you with your GitHub issues, or like someone do a pull request to fix your issue, take the time to just say thanks. Like, it doesn't cost much. And as I said, even if we don't do that for having people to like thank us. It's always nice to receive that little token of appreciation or affection. Rama, I have one last question for you. It's the same thing with every live stream that I'm doing with Developer Advocate or Evangelist. Like, we all talked a lot, so we could do that live stream for hours. I'm pretty sure we would still have topics to talk about, but
Mhm.
we're gonna move to the demo right after. Just a question, because you have like an experience that, as you said, like you went from like really early startup, you went to like more mid-sized company, but also you worked for more traditional, if I should say, for-profit company, and now you're working for a non-profit company. And I've been there too, but like there's not a lot of people that like goes into two type of enterprise. So I would be curious, like, is there anything you would like to share about like maybe what's the difference between the working and the non-profit and the for-profit? Like, is there something you've seen that like really makes a difference in a positive, or I don't know, maybe a less positive way, or basically anything you want to share about that? I pretty sure people would be curious to learn a little more about like working in those two type of enterprise organization.
Sure. I mean, it's all a mixed bag. There's some, you know stuff that's good and bad. So for the duration that I was at like open source things, there's no sales pressure. There's no quarterly meetings about earnings and profits and margins and things like that you might not have to care about it, but you still have to have your ears to the ground about how the company is doing and things like that. And um, open source is a lot of relief from uh, that kind of stuff that takes up a few brain cycles. um, but on the flip side, I don't even know who's using the project, and I have no way of like tapping into uh, a customer list or a user list or some product life cycle that people are on. And I can sit with the marketing team and say, hey, this is the stuff that just got released, and let's do some newsletters, let's do some blogs, let's do some promotion around these specific features that are great for, I don't know, some very niche ops people who work with pagerduty, for example. So uh, we built some integrations, and now this entire community can be introduced. So let's buy some webinar space and do like 4 or 5 different issues of what can be done with these new features. So that's the challenge with open source, and that's the relief that it also has versus the opportunities that
Yeah.
a commercial vendor slash product offers is just so much more compared to like open source. And you don't necessarily have fat marketing budgets or like PR budgets and things like that. They're all small. You have to make use of them meaningfully. There's no real targeted persona based advertising as much as there is on like product based companies to get the word out and things like that. So you're somewhat resource constrained. I wouldn't say you're resource starved. You're somewhat resource constrained in an open source project. You have to be very mindful of what your spend is and where the marketing dollars are going, because this is again A lot of it comes from donations and memberships and things like that. And so you really have to watch what you spend. There's no notion of, hey, I raised X amount of dollars and things like that. And um, at times, what I do miss is having a sales and a marketing team that are driving conversations a specific way and can give me very structured pathways for, here's how to
Mhm.
start an awareness program, here's how to execute a mid funnel conversion program and things like that. So um, yeah, it's a both of them are a mixed bag, but the overall open source stuff has been so much more rewarding. um, if if I must conclude that train of thought.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And like as much as it seems like I said negative things about sales and marketing before, it was not the
No, no,
case.
no.
It was
Yeah.
just like we have different approaches. And I also remember a time, like depending on a company, where I had like those entity, those group within the company, and the because of the nature of like developer relation or evangelism, you have to work with mostly every department in the company. You have to try and like to find like a win-win situation to help each other, like
Hmm.
depending on like what's your day to day. And as like one of the things that I always say is that it's yes, it's my daily job to do developer relation, but it's everybody's job to do developer relations. So in the end of the day, like when marketing and sales, they reach out, they talk to developer, they target developers, they help me a little bit like do developer relation. And as I said, like there is a win-win situation. I'm going to help them also achieve part of their goal if it like if there is a good fit between those. So having those teams can be something really helpful. So I kind of agree. But yeah, no, thanks for being candid and sharing about the mixed bags of like working
Yeah.
in both of those type of
I mean,
organizations.
there's also the fact that certain kind of work appeals to certain people. So I'm the sort that likes to sit down and just experiment with projects and see how they fit in or how they don't, and run some tests and see how they perform and document all of these things. And just, I'm very happy to just write a blog about it, which can be very difficult inside a commercial setting. At times you do obviously get some time for it, but it might not be the case always. And so it really depends, I guess, on also how people's mental makeup is. So if people
Mhm.
have the inclination to do more of experimentation, and they don't mind trying 75 times and failing before they get things right and things like that, it's a very good place, and it's a very good fit in terms of being like an open source advocate and working for a foundation and things like that, versus um, if you're more of a go-getter and there are things about a commercial product that appeal more to you than uh, I don't know, just working on projects and things like that. And um, on the financial side, if you care a lot more about equity and those kind of things, then those it's open source foundations probably won't appeal to that kind of personas.
Yeah, no, makes sense, makes sense. So yeah, no, thanks again for the honest answer. We're keeping the direction of like being honest when we talk into your stuff. So on that note, as I said, we could talk a lot more, but I think it's time for a demo. And if I'm not wrong, you're gonna talk a little bit more about build packs. Am I
Yep,
right? Awesome.
that's
So
right.
let's do this. Let's do the demo.
So, just a little bit of background before we dive into a terminal and make this really appealing to developers. um, so, Buildpacks is a project that is that's about 15 years old now. So, if if folks have in the past used Heroku, and it's a technology that it was really pioneered by the folks at Heroku. The idea is build packs are these tools that allow you to build an artifact that you can deploy using just your source code. So no meta files, no manifests, no Docker files, none of these things that and in today's context, no YAMLs that you really need to write to describe a lot about your application. So uh, that, that's kind of the goal that build packs have always espoused. And build packs as a technology have been very successful for very general purpose development. Like everybody who knows Heroku loves Heroku. People who don't know Heroku, I pity you. You should really uh, I mean, what it brought in 2012, which was the first time I used it, what it brought in terms of that one single command deployment was amazing. I still know the feeling. And so Cloud Foundry as a technology was in principle the same as Heroku, but for a very enterprisey audience and persona, as opposed to like the common developer persona that Heroku was after. They also espouse the concept of build packs. And after a few years they diverged. So Heroku did build packs a certain way, and the Cloud Foundry community did build packs a certain way. And then after the whole Docker thing happened, um, there was more consensus among these people about there should be one container standard. And it would be better if all of the communities stuck to that one container
Mm.
standard. And with the whole cloud native wave, what they decided to do was converge onto a single specification known as a cloud native build pack. And so the Heroku and the Cloud Foundry communities came together, and they standardized the container format to um, a build pack would output an OCI format image. So this is the Open Container Initiative for those who are unfamiliar. And build packs, the community that was always kind of together, but they sort of emerged into something more cohesive under the Cloud Native Build Packs umbrella. And at the moment there's two families of Cloud Native Build Packs that you can use. So buildpacks.io, which is the CNCF project, provides a specification. And then there's the Heroku based Cloud Native Build Packs that are open source and production ready. And then there's a Paketo build packs, which is what the Cloud Foundry Foundation owns. And I'll probably show links to all of these in the browser in just a bit. But Paketo was the first one to open source production ready build packs. Heroku, incidentally, just made the announcement in Paris at KubeCon a couple of months ago. So until then, you do have Google build packs, you do have Heroku build packs, and you have Paketo build packs, and build packs from a few other folks, but none of them are open and production ready, as Paketo has always been, and as the Heroku build packs are now. So that's the background. And so basically build packs will let you build containers from your source code, and that's really what I intend to demo today. So I'm going to switch to
That's
a
amazing.
terminal window.
Yeah, let's move to your screen. And while we do that, there's JTech Innovations that said, cloud computing is the future, bro. Thanks for this interview. Thanks to Ram for being here, and thanks for you for joining. And just before I give you the mic back, Ram, just want to thank our sponsor Q first, which is, yes, my employer. They are really supportive about the Devrel show. Just happy for me to be able to share the developer relations love out there. So thanks for sponsoring the show. and Nimitz saying like Docker for the win. When I started to use Docker, I had some love-hate relationship with Docker because
Sure.
that was like a new paradigm. That was a new
Hmm.
way of doing things. So like probably every other person, I don't always like new stuff or new ways of doing what I used to do for a couple of years. But now I'm in a place where like I'm in peace with those technologies. So let's go. Let's show us Buildpack, so we learn a little bit
Awesome.
more about how to
So,
use it.
so my terminal is visible. Hopefully, if you can't see
It's
it or if you can't read what's on there, just scream, and I'll be happy to help. Let's see. So, yeah, the I have a bunch of different sample apps. So one of the things that Buildpacks actually does is uh, it caters to a large set of languages and frameworks, and it's also it also has to align with how you do dependencies. Like for example, these are all the different ways in which Ruby applications can be built and worked with. So you have Ruby on Rails, which is like the most common one, I guess, but you also have like different ways in which dependencies can be done, different frameworks that work with it. And so I'll also show you like, here's the different kinds of PHP stuff that we build. So if you use Composer, let's say, for managing dependencies, or you use PHP inside an Nginx based setup, then you can go for it. And like if you have Java, and whenever I show this, there's either young people in the audience who look at me like I just said Jurassic Park, or very experienced people who still know that a big part of the internet runs on Java. So, so I either get a smile. I get a smile either ways. It's either very bemused or very knowing. So, but the point I was trying to make is there's so many different ways in which Java can work, and you have build packs that can accommodate all of these different things. So. If you want to, let's say, export as a war file or a jar file, you have build packs capable of doing that. Versus if you're using Gradle or Maven to manage your dependencies, you have ways of doing that. Or if you're using Java like flavors and frameworks such as Kotlin or Akka, then build packs can accommodate those as well. So it's really a lot of things. And um, for the for the once upon a time hipster world, you could use npm, react, yarn, all of these, and each of these have a different build pack. So that's one of the things that I wanted to highlight before starting. And so let's take an npm example. So this is the source. So there's a very basic app, just simple thing that's working. I'll modify this just a second. um, so let's see. Hi, Devrel show. So this is my app, pretty basic. I think everybody can read that. It's just going to display some stuff. And so the way you consume build packs is using this CLI tool known as pack. And so again, this is an example of what we were talking about before. This is a wonderful project, but it takes a new approach to create a container, in that it has what is known as a builder and what is known as a build pack. And these are the different pieces that let you create the container, uh, as opposed to like having a Docker file and creating those layers for different commands within the Docker file and managing dependencies and things like that. So, um, pack build demo node. So let me build that container. And so what this will do is it'll go through a similar set of processes of downloading uh, a base builder, and that's also a container image. And so this container image will basically then be used to actually build the app, and the resulting container image will also be like in layers, much like a Docker file and things like that. And it can do a lot of things much faster. For example, the app built very quickly because a lot of the build steps are cached. There's a build pack life cycle. So, because there's no image with this name, then it's going to create one and things like that. And so the build basically takes this path of, creating a bunch of layers for an application. And, that's about it. So Docker run um, this one. Hopefully there's no ports that I have to map. uh, yeah, so that's the big part is the build process itself. Let's see. um, let's see. Should have been better prepared. Okay, there's some issues with it, but what I wanted to highlight was the image gets built quite straightforward, irrespective of which um, language family you're using. Like, for example, um, if I was to use this PHP file, then I would say pack build and PHP demo. So again, no Docker file, no additional um, YAML files for managing things, and it just you know builds a very simple PHP app that quickly. So it's faster, it's more modular, it's more convenient, and it's very homogeneous across any language family that you have. So that's what I love about the project. So um, I just wanted to
That's
demo
good.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, no, no, no. I like that. I like that. There's a lot of benefit. I mean, I would be curious to understand like how Buildpack is defining some of the thing that like you would define like in a Docker file or in any other
Yeah.
file that's going to use to pack that. But it seems like it's, I don't know, intelligent enough to like find the right information and build in consequence of like what you have in your code in your project.
Mhm.
Awesome.
So there's a detect phase that's built into build packs. Sorry for not choosing a better verb, but so the detect goes through your project and it'll see what kind of files you have. So do you have a pom.xml, for example, or do you have a requirements.json file in there and things like that? And that's what helps it determine what build pack it should use and how it should build it. And so there's some logic baked into that. But yeah, it's very nifty. I think it's very clever in terms of what it can do. And I would highly recommend folks to check the project out, buildpacks.io, or you could do paketo.io. Fred had it there a little earlier. Thanks, Fred. And yeah, that being said, these are all open source projects, always in need of maintainers and contributors and people who can help, not just with the technical stuff, but also like in terms of writing docs and building demos and trying things and seeing where it breaks, and giving feedback to the maintainers about what can be better, and lot of support required with just the outreach and other things. So if you're interested in those, hop onto the different open source repos that are out there, and um, just volunteer, I guess, for stuff that you would be interested in doing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So yeah, if you have a little bit of time and you want to, I don't know, grow some expertise or experience doing that, please do so. Uh, Open source project always need people, and then I really love that you said like, hey, it's not just about like doing a pull request and coding
Yeah.
stuff. Like being
Mhm.
an open source contributor, it's about so much more, as you said. So that's great to highlight that and be really clear with people. So thanks a lot for the demo. I mean, I know Buildpact by name. I think I used it a couple of years ago, if I want to be honest, but like I did not really like remember. So that was a good demo for you to get back in the Buildpack world, and hopefully that was interesting for people out there. I'm pretty sure it was. So thanks again for the demo. Thanks for being a guest on the show. That was a pleasure to have you share about your experience, know a little more about your journey, learn about Build Pact. So, yeah, thanks again for being on the show. That was a real pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Fred. It was nice of you to accommodate my request to be on the show, and hopefully it's useful for a lot of people watching. And yeah,
I'm sure it is. So, folks, thanks for joining us live. Thanks for commenting, asking questions. Thanks for the people also who are gonna watch the recording. Like I did not forget about you. You're still gonna be there. If you have any question while watching the recording, had them under the YouTube video, and I will try to answer them. If they're specific about build packs, I will ping Ram and say like, "Hey, would you like to jump in to answer that question?" Because there is a chance I don't have the answer for the demo part, but I'm always there if there is anything. And on that note, also, if you want to be a guest on the show, good and bad news, meaning that like I'm fully booked until the end of the year. But I'm gonna continue to do that show. Thank you. I'm gonna continue to do that show in 2025. So I will at some point start to book people for next year also. But yeah, so far so good. I'm really excited about the people wanting to be on the show, and it's just like I'm just having a nice moment with guests, as I said at the beginning. So on that note, it is the end of the show for today. Thanks again for joining us. Thanks again, Ram, and people. See you in 2 weeks for the next Devrel show. So have a good rest of the day.